You wonderful people here. This is really exciting. I'm Jill Wiedemann-West. I'm the CEO of People Incorporated Mental Health Services. We are an organization that is over 55 years old that's been serving the state of Minnesota, and more specifically the Twin Cities area, with mental health services. I'm proud to say that in 1969, in humble beginnings, the basement of a church is where People Incorporated started. And it started with someone saying, I think those people that are standing outside next door need something more than they're getting. And I wonder if I invite them into my church and give them a cup of coffee, if I might learn what it is that they need. And that birthed the beautiful People Incorporated. We are really excited to be able to provide a host of services throughout all the way up into St. Louis County and in the Twin Cities, where we have our primary services, everything from crisis services for individuals in crisis, treatment services, outpatient mental health clinics for both kids and adults. We're in 30 schools doing mental health services with kids. Really just literally going out into the community and doing outreach, whether it be with homeless folks or folks that just maybe need something more than they're getting, and all we have to do is say, how can I help? And I want to just highlight that today as I welcome everyone here. One of the most fabulous parts of being People Incorporated is just this, creating community conversations, opening up community to try to find ways to figure out what do we need, how do we become a more well community. And I'm just very, very happy to be here and have all of this wonderful community with us. I want to thank our moderator, Chantel. Thank you, ma'am. And our partners that made today's panel possible. V3, where's Malik? Beautiful facility, serving the community, lovely. And thank you for hosting us in your incredible space. UCare and Check and Fam for providing resource discovery for our community. And Medica for sponsoring our light breakfast, which was provided by Lutunji's Palette. It was really tasty, right? We are grateful to Building a Better You Foundation, the Cake Therapy Foundation, Mind the Crown, my show, and the Oxygen Plan for tabling at this event and sharing resources that are so vital to creating community wellness. I'm thrilled to be kicking off the meeting today. This is called Bridging the Gap, and it is a panel discussion between mental health and caregivers. So important because when we think about caregivers, they're not just folks like the folks that work for People Incorporated that are in fact getting paid to come to work and see a client or help them with a housing resource or meet their needs in that way. But bridging the gap and thinking about caregivers is so much bigger than that. We know that people show up where they need something. It might just be that they need community, but it might be that they need something more. And what we know is families, V3s, food shelves, all kinds of different places in our community host individuals who have a need or more than one need. And wherever there is a need, that's where we want to be. And I think the more that we can commit to that, the more we create wellness in our community. So we're excited about this conversation because it is so important to mental wellness and so important to mental health. And I thank all of our lovely panelists, who I'm sure are going to get introduced here in a moment. And I appreciate you so much bringing your wisdom and your experience and your strength to this conversation. And for that, I'll step back and let this all begin. So thank you.
Right, I think maybe I'll use the mic. I don't know if I do it, but we'll play it by ear. Well, thank you so much to People Incorporated for having me. Thank you to all of you for being here. It's amazing. Thank you, of course, to Malik for having us here, V3 Sports. He gave me a nice, tour. It's a beautiful facility. You did an amazing job. So we're proud of you for what you and your team has built here. So yeah, let's give it up for Malik and V3 Sports. Beautiful. Beautiful work. And thank you, Jill, so much for having me and everything you're doing with People Incorporated. Abby told me a little bit about the organization, and I feel like, I think I probably don't need this mic.
I think I can elevate a little bit. Jill, thank you so much for everything you're doing with People Incorporated. Just as a person who's suffered or is still, dealing with mental health issues myself, the resources that you guys are providing with People Incorporated and just putting together this Bridging the Gap event is so important. I think that people need to know more about the services that are provided out there for people with mental health illness. And I think that it's a conversation like this that we should have more often so people can know that there's people out there that care about people that suffer from mental health illnesses. So with that, my name is Chantel Sings. I am with KMOJ Radio. I've been with KMOJ for, I think, 15 years now. I do morning show radio there. I'm production director, so the commercials, if you listen to KMOJ, 95% are produced by me, voiced by me, so you'll probably hear my voice a lot. I get tired of it, I know you do too. So I'm grateful to be here, and thank you guys for inviting me and having me. And with that, we'll get started with our lovely panelists. First off, Malik Rucker. He serves as executive director for V3 Sports here, of course. So Malik, we have here as the director of operations of People Incorporated, we have Anthony Lamkin. Thank you for being here. Dr. Altreisha Foster. She's a Jamaican vaccine scientist and entrepreneur, so thank you so much for being here. Yes, thank you. Melanie Joyce is a mental health caretaker, so thank you, Melanie. She actually reached out to me and saw that I would be a part of this event, and she really wanted to be a part of it as a panelist to talk about her story and some of her experiences with mental health. So, and we were able to get her on, so thank you guys at People Incorporated for it. And that chair wasn't there. It's perfect
for you. Just perfect for you. It was like meant to be.
Right there. Malik found that in the back room. Mindy Greiling, great. Served in the Minnesota House of Representatives for 20 years, so thank you for being here. We appreciate that. So these questions actually can be directed at any of you. I'll just kind of open the floor to whoever feels that the question fits you the most. But first off, let's talk about some of the most common emotional challenges that caregivers face when supporting a loved one with mental health issues or someone in a mental health program. So what are some of the things that either of you have seen as far as challenges for the caregivers? Because we never think about, for example, quick example, I might have a few examples. My sister just had she lives in Baltimore, she's younger than me, I think she's 34, but she just had a heart transplant and a double lung transplant. Oh, wow. Yeah. And she's doing great. Again, she lives in Baltimore. I have another sister who lives in Las Vegas. She left Las Vegas to go to Baltimore to take care of my sister and to make sure that she was okay and that she would get through her recovery days. But I found that these are my sisters. One is older, the Vegas one's older, the younger one is the one with the transplant. But we live in different states, so they don't know each other. They're sisters, but they don't really know each other. So what I found was my sister that had the transplant, obviously what comes with that is a lot of mental anguish and it's a lot of emotional challenges with that. And my older sister did the best she could to try to help with that, but they were bumping heads, and I think they didn't understand how to make it work. So my sister as a caregiver, she was struggling, she's calling me. My sister that needs the care, she's struggling, she's calling me. And then I blocked my phone. That's how this all happened. But any of you, if you could talk about the challenges that the caregiver has. I mean, it's not easy taking care of someone who's struggling with mental health issues. So if any of you want to kind of cover that.
I could lean into it a little bit because currently that's my reality. I took care of my mom who had Parkinson's, and the end stage of that is dementia. And watching her decline in health is like one of the biggest challenges, and it's something that we don't talk about enough because we ourselves don't realize that as the parent or the loved one is declining, we too are declining in the process. But we're just so focused on trying to make this loved one better. And I found for me is the irritability, the anxiety, just the constant stress. And that ultimately led to depression without you even knowing that someone had to, people have to actually be intentional about checking on you or checking in fam, you know, checking on your fam and like tapping you to see what's actually going on. But it is really a stressful situation. It's the heartbreak. It's the grief. You're just grieving the loss of someone who's still walking around here. And you sometimes don't even know how to explain that type of grief, because the common one is your loved one passes on and you grieve, but you're just walking and you're just grieving daily, and it's like a physical anguish and something that lives inside of you. I'm going to take up too much time, but I got back from Jamaica where my mom now lives last night, like about 1 a.m. And I was on the plane and I'm just constantly like just anxious, like I want to do this panel tomorrow, but then my heart is so broken. So it's the heartbreak and the anxiety that comes with it that, you know, is often so overlooked and not spoken about.
Anybody else?
I was going to say, working in a facility, hands-on, coming to work, you know, you have a team. The team is supposed to work together. Finds it very challenging because when you're working on a unit and you get assigned to a certain area, a certain unit, or a certain patient, it's the fear of knowing you're going to do it, I'm going to do it, and we got to do this together and stick together. You got to leave everything that's going on at home. And when you get on that unit, you better be ready. You got to be ready, mentally, spiritually, the whole nine. So the challenging part for me was when I was working in a facility like that, been pushed into a certain area, and I know I'm not safe. We don't have a solid team. Where's the support staff? That was always challenging. It has been challenging still today. Getting a little teary-eyed, a little emotional. I was assaulted last year, February, by a patient. And the team member that I was with, she ran and left me. We knew the situation. When I took on this shift, I wasn't assigned to that shift per se. I just picked up, extra money, why not? And that day was not my shift, it was not my unit, but it was her unit. And she abandoned me, and I was beat. So that can be very challenging for a caregiver in the mental health field or on a hospital unit, the safety. So now, I'm here today, by the grace of God, y'all.
Thank you. Mindy, would you like to?
Yeah, I will add in here. So I have a son, by the way, I have a son with schizoaffective disorder, and he gets all his services from People Incorporated. So I am not paid, but I will say it's a wonderful organization. Occasionally I have to, go to the top and go to Jill or go to Mike and shake people, but most it's a wonderful organization. They put up with me, and they also do a really good job for our son. And our son has sometimes been the one that bonked somebody over the head in the psych ward. He's doing really well right now, but it is challenging for the hospital caregivers to deal with people who are psychotic or who are paranoid or any number of things. But what I want to just focus on for this question is when most of us are dealing with family issues, we assume the family will be welcome, and the family will be welcome. But that's not always the case with mental illness. If you have been dealing with this issue, you know about releases of information, which means if your son is paranoid about you and he thinks you are the devil, he doesn't want to sign a release, and nobody's encouraging him to do so. They just assume you must not be such a great person, or he would sign the release. They might not know about something called anosognosia, which means the person with serious mental illness like schizophrenia or schizoaffective or bipolar disorder, part of the brain doesn't allow them to know that they're ill. They don't know know they're ill. So they think nothing's the matter with them, and you, the mother or the father or anybody who got them to the psych ward, must be trying to punish them or do something. So no, they're not gonna sign the release. So then you're just stuck not knowing what's going on. Like every other illness, everybody assumes you would be helpful. That's not always the case with mental illness, and that hurts.
So I think I want to direct Andy this next question to you, when People Incorporated. How can caregivers recognize signs of burnout? You know, people don't necessarily know that they're stressed or they're burnt out or their mental health is declining, or like Altreisha said it, Dr. Foster said that you know, sometimes you're depressed and don't know it. How can you tell? How can you figure out what's going on with you as a caregiver?
I think it's important that you are as active as you can be in your loved one's treatment. And so where you're in any good worker, whether it be a therapist or a skills worker or like a coordinator, like a case manager, should be routinely checking in with you as the caregiver as well to make sure everything's okay. And you really should partner with that person, use them as a resource, use their expertise and the company that they're with and that company's expertise to really be able to pay attention to that. I think personally, there are different indicators that happen when you're feeling depressed, you're feeling stressed. Like, are you more tired than usual? Are you quicker to anger? Like all these things that are kind of easy to say but hard to tell within yourself. So it's one thing that's important to remember is that you being your best self will help your loved one become their best self and heal. And so always being mindful, always checking in with yourself. If you have your own support network, it's checking in with them and surrounding yourself with people that will be honest with you if they see you. I mean, I know my wife does it all the time too. It's like, check yourself. Right.
Thank you so much, Andy. Malik, I'll direct this next one to you since we are here at B3 Sports, and I do feel that there has to be some type of therapeutic effect with what we do here, with everything you have from the gym to the pool, and even health, or not healthcare, but daycare for kids, and the facilities you have with the younger kids and the middle school kids. I mean, you have everything that one person that might be going through mental health issues could probably use your resources. So what types of professional resources similar to yours, or talk to us about maybe how people use this resource in this facility to help them with some of their mental health issues or caregivers?
I got you. Well, first of all, welcome to the B3 Center. We actually been around since 2007, but broke ground on this facility back in November of 2022, and grand opened June 22nd of this year, so we're still in the first few months. And the origin of us was built out of a lack of building infrastructure around physical well-being. And what we do is that in order for our community to be healthy, they had to have a place to go out and be physically healthy. And the other thing that we know is that in some cases, mental and physical health are correlated. So this center is a space where we see people, not only from a workout standpoint, but a quality of life. And I've had people come up to me and say, I unpacked my house from leaving North Minneapolis because of the B3 Center. There's a destination for my family, and the quality of life for my family is elevated. So when you talk about B3, yes, it's a pool, it's a fitness center, we got restaurants, we have all of these different resources, but we're also a third space for our people to be together, to be in community, to be social, to be able to do things like this and create a safe space as such as this. This is a very intimate setting, and we are talking about vulnerable things. And this is a very vulnerable space when we talk about water and workout equipment. And what we try to do is have a staff that is welcoming and creates a space that's welcoming to our community.
Can I add to that a little bit? Yeah, thank you. So, one of the not so glamorous legacy of our community is to think that talk therapy is not the answer, the response, but we have options. I'm a huge proponent of the arts. I encourage people to dive into the arts and respond to their own traumas and respond. I think that art therapy, cake therapy, and other forms of non-traditional art forms is an adequate response. It's a supportive response to the pool and sports. And I would encourage our community to dive down, take a deeper dive into that. Talk therapy is not only the answer, right. And it's so stigmatized in our community anyway. Right. So find something that you can put your hand in. If you can sing, go sing, find an outlet. Go swim in the pool.
So tell us cake therapy, what is that about? Just elaborate on that.
Thank you for that. I'm happy that you asked. So cake therapy is the art of mindful baking. And we do that with women and girls in the community. We're currently in 2 schools. One on the north side, we're at Ascension Catholic right now, and I know that BG does a lot of work with them. But I'm just teaching women and girls impacted by the system to just bake through their trauma. Why am I sure that works? It works for me. I've been through some things, but for me was when I got pregnant with my second child, which is a girl, and the fear of not being able to protect her from the things that happened to me, I just started to bake. And that really saved me and my child because I knew where I was heading. So what I do now is I just openly promote that mindful baking through trauma, well-being, and I give it to girls. I'm encouraging them to not only bake a cake, but just appreciate the success of completing that task. Mm-hmm. But that even, let me add something else to this. I'm teaching them how to become entrepreneurs too. Yay. Because it is a lucrative art form that I have a business called Sugar Spoon Desserts that came out of that hobby. So that's what cake therapy is. And if you want to talk a little bit more, I'm here. I got panelists in the bag. All right. I got cakes in the bag if you want to get. Yeah, I don't have cakes in the bag. I can. I don't have cakes in the bag. But we can.
We're gonna let you use the cake.
Yeah,
of
course.
Got a kitchen. We can bake. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
And so I want to direct this next question to you, Melanie, as far as advocating for yourself, being that you were in the situation you're in where you were at the care facility. How do you advocate for yourself with the health professionals or programs that you work with that may not hear your cry and not know about something that happened to you? What do you do?
I found resources for myself. They assigned me a quality worker, one of those people that help you after the incident, supposed to ride that you do it all the way to the end. And then when the workers' comp ended, and I had to go see the doctor that was assigned from that facility, she said, oh, she's fine. She can go back to work in the same facility, she's just fine. After being diagnosed through associated psychology programming, they had already diagnosed me with PTSD and all these other things, but the person was representing that other. Exactly. And so, being careful what I say, y'all. So, I started finding resources for myself. So when everything stopped, that means my workers' comp stopped. That happened in June. So I had no more money left. I was living off what I had left, savings to keep housing and stuff like that. I started reaching out to different organizations. I went through NAMI. I made a call to them. They had a free resource at this church in South Minneapolis. They had a group, and you can come there for treatment. And you sit there and talk to other people that suffer through PTSD. And then when I heard about this, I reached out to this amazing queen that Chantel assigned me to, and she has just been phenomenal. And then after that, the guy named David called me just the day before yesterday because I had all these medications that I needed that I had already been given from my psychologist who gave me the medicine. I no longer can get it. So I don't have the money to get this medication to keep me stable. Needing different medications. So I called you, and David called me yesterday. And David gave me, he's going to be now my care manager. I don't don't know who he is. My medical care manager. So he helps me get my medication. And then Abby, you've been phenomenal too. Thank you. So I've heard people incorporated being in this field and working in social services for so long. But man, to be really, really in it now, I'm like, wow, this is dope. I didn't know these people out there. This is amazing. So those are the things that I started doing. When they shut down, I got on it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna help myself. Y'all ain't gonna leave me out here to hang. Because I worked in it enough to see what happens when you don't need that. I was taboo to therapy. I ain't going no therapy. That's great. Because that's in our community. We think that. We believe that. And I've learned that, no, I ain't gonna be that. I ain't gonna sit in that chair where he's sitting at. And they ain't gonna give you that medication. So I had to find resources to fight for myself. So I am a warrior standing here. I'm a queen standing here. I started making the calls. 211, 411, all. And I appreciate God for that.
She called everyone one. So, thank you. And Jill, there's your next commercial for
But I do.
Commercial for well, you just answered the next question, but if anyone else wants to elaborate on resources for caregivers that you know about, maybe Mindy, Andy, have you found any resources for these?
Someone mentioned NAMI, I didn't catch her. Somebody did.
The National Association of Mental Illness, they are phenomenal. They have a lot of different groups, especially for parents that have children that deal with psychosis episodes. Police don't know how to address our people with psychosis episodes. They just go on for this. I'm just keeping it real. So getting that knowledge and getting that support from NAMI, I went to them, called them, and they gave me different centers that I can go to for free. Remember, I'm like, income stopped, everything stopped. So I had to find some National Association of Mental Illness.
That's a wonderful, wonderful organization.
It is.
How about you, Andy? Any resources besides People Incorporated that you know? I mean, you want to plug them.
I'm very happy to plug them. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of. I think that's part of the conversation is that we, in this field, we see a lot of adapting and closing and opening of new businesses and changes within the different organizations that do this work. And so I think if one of the things that's really crucial for people that are struggling is to get connected with an expert in the field. And I know People Incorporated, a lot of the other companies have them too. Case managers, care managers, VHH workers, all these workers that it's their job to be experts and up with the new companies, the new things. Because Minneapolis and St. Paul used to release their something of the streets. They had the pamphlet that they used to come out. They stopped. It's all electronic only now. But to have to do something like that every 2 years means there's always a lot of changes. So it's incredibly important to get connected with an expert in the field, which some of the large organizations have caseworkers that do that. Your Catholic Charities, your Wilder Foundation. NAMI's wonderful, and I'm really happy that you got connected with them. So yeah.
Thank you, Andy. So the next question is kind of still around that support group and looking for places for caregivers to go. So I guess I would direct it as for anyone who wants to answer, what would you look for in a support group for a caregiver, and what type of benefits or what type of support do you feel like you need when you're looking for a support group?
Well, in about an hour and a half, I will be having lunch with 5 other mothers who all have sons with schizophrenia. And that, to me, is the best support group. It's kind of like the cake organization in the sense that you're not formally meeting with some professional or someone who's kind of directing things, but instead you're learning from other people who are in the same boat as you are. So none of us, we're all just mothers. And that is where I get most of my support. I have actually never been to a psychologist. Most people I know that are dealing with serious mental illness in the family do go to a psychologist. My son has been to many, some of which he really benefited from, and others he wouldn't go back. So if you do have someone like that, I would just say make sure it's a fit. someone who knows you, who you relate to, and if it doesn't fit, get out of there and get somebody else. But I don't want a professional. I like mentors. I like to mentor, and those people are the ones who know what's going on, because you have to find out what's going on with any illness. If you're dealing with dementia or cancer or anything, don't you go to everybody you know and ask what you can learn? And so I take great solace in meeting with other families who know, and you don't have to explain that.
I absolutely agree with her. You're looking for a likeness, a similarity in conversation, and you also want an empathetic group, and you want community. And when I say community, it could be one person. That one person could be your person that you go to. That's my community, because I'm super private, right? But I think that you have to find something that makes you or helps you feel whole again. And leaving a conversation, you're leaving with answers and not as many questions. So those are the things that I look for when I'm in this space.
I look for something tangible. Tangible. Somebody that I know that's been through something. Best knowledge and power you get from somebody that's going through what you do.
Right.
So I found, I'm gonna say it again, People Incorporated was tangible. They were able to give me the resources and the help that I needed immediately. One call. And things began to be effective. And then when it's effective, you know, it's manifesting. So this healing was manifesting. I wasn't worried so much about too much. She called me and she's like, I know I've been busy, but I'm here. I'm here for you. I got your back. Hadn't even seen her, never met her. It was tangible resources. So I'm grateful for that. Finding somebody that's tangible.
Yeah, for me, I can't say I've ever looked for resources. Everything that my family's been through, or like my grandmother died from dementia. That's what we went through that for a couple of years. She went to memory care and all that. I got a sister that has bipolar. All the things I've never actually. I don't think I've ever just sat there and tried to like notice what I was actually going through. Just kept moving. So I can't say I've ever even thought about it or looked for a reason.
Do you feel like now that you're kind of more, I guess, aware of it, of like when we talked about some of the issues that you might be having, or just even if you're not a caregiver, but somebody who is around you, like you said, your sister has bipolar, do you feel like now you would be more open to maybe tapping in and see if you need to find some resources or some support groups?
I came here today to learn.
You're in the room. I'm in the right space.
I'm here to learn, and it does seem like there's opportunities out there for resources, not only for myself, but for my family members and the people that look to me. I see I'm in a influential seat, which means I'm in influential seat with my family and my friend groups. And you know how people say check on your strong friend.
Yeah.
I feel that way because you often you are that sounding board. You are often that person that people push off either their problems or whatever they may be going through at that time. So going forward, I think I know a couple of people.
Do you think that? I'm sorry. Do you think that Increased Force will be open to having some type of area in your facility that helps people with mental health issues, or some type of resource here at Increased Force?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Plugging people incorporated.
They've been plugged. I did a great job. And they have a program called Art Ability that we're going to be offering.
It's called That's Good.
Art Ability, and y'all can talk about it because I can't.
They're better than you talking about that. So.
Thank you. We'll talk about it. Andy, same question?
You know, what I really appreciate theme-wise with what everybody's talking about is the community piece. And I think that's, to be really blunt, like any worker worth their salt, when they walk up to talk with a client or someone who's supporting them, will ask them who their community is. And will assist them in helping them find a community if they didn't already. And so I think, sometimes that's a group, whether it's a group run by our company, a different company, whatever, sometimes it's, like-minded people that will grab, lunch with you every once in a while. And I just think it's that community that's the most impactful. It's on a person's growth and healing. And that's family, that's friends, that's really anybody in their life that'll help move in the right direction.
I agree. Thank you, Andy. I just want to elaborate on just my own experience. So as far as support groups, I think I'm in a position where, I believe, I forget who said it, but they said the person who has a mic has a big responsibility. And being not just a radio personality, but I'm also a singer, but I'm also an ovarian cancer survivor. So the resource that I found was an organization called MOCA, and it's the Minnesota Ovarian Cancer Alliance, and I found that they were kind of, I created an event called We Fight Against Cancer, where I gave out kind of like awards to survivors who maybe survived cancer or someone that may have lost someone to cancer, and MOCA was a big part of like just being a part of that and sponsoring it and just providing resources, pamphlets to people to just kind of get people talking more about ovarian cancer, because I think it's the cancer that people don't talk about the most, and it's one of the most deadliest cancers. So I was 23 when I had cancer, so I was so young, just out of college, and I have a son who's 22 now, but he was young, and so it was a struggle to go through that process and having that big health issue, and I didn't really have any resources. I didn't know who to call, who to talk to. When I would go to my treatments after I came out of the surgery and everything for just my follow-up care, the people in the room were like 70 years old, 60 years old, 50, and I'm just like 23, and they're looking at me like, what are you doing here? I'm just like, I'm in here because it affects anybody, but it was off and it was awkward. So I think it's really important when you're going through something to find, like we've been talking about, a place where you can feel like it's relatable, like people relate to you, they kind of understand your story a little bit. So thank you guys for all of your responses on that. And just to keep the time, we have about a little over 10 minutes. So I think if anyone has any final thoughts, we're gonna get your final thoughts and then open the floor to everyone for questions. So any final thoughts before we open the floor?
I could lean into that again. I talked about. My final thought here, and I don't want to just take up too much of the space, but everybody's mental health struggle is different, and like the way we respond to it, it's like the same old saying, go to talk therapy. It's no longer working. It doesn't work. And we have leaders and we have listeners in the room. So I'm going to speak to the leaders first. It's like you have to take stock of, people get PhDs because they're seeking new knowledge. That's why you get a PhD. They don't give you the PhD unless you're bringing new knowledge to the table. What is in front of you is that there are other alternatives to what your staff need and what you need to respond to what you are going through. It doesn't have to be cake, but it could be. It doesn't have to be art. It could be dance. It could be simply coming to V3 and jumping in the pool. You have to allow, okay? They dance here too. So all I'm saying is lean into your staff a little bit more, listen to yourself a little bit more, and allow them the opportunity to explore these things that are out there. For what is it worth? There is the audacity of hope for me that people can lean into what is possible. That talk therapy is not the only thing, but there are alternatives too. Absolutely. And there are complementary pieces to this. Your staff doesn't have to go in the office 9 to 5. You got 2 hours to come to V3 and swim and dance. Good. That's what I'm saying. You just have to approach this with an open mind. And I'm saying to the leaders and to the listeners, try something new. You're going through something, call me. Call V3. I'm just saying, just be open to what's out there and search for yourself. Google is free. Check in on yourself. Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. I worked at a facility, Prairie Care, as a psych care. So before we went on the unit to even go upstairs with the children, they had this room. I was like, I never worked anywhere like this before. It was like real dim, it was bubbles, like a bubble room. And before we go on the unit, everybody sat in this room, all 20 of us, before we went on the units. And they would do a meditation before we went upstairs to touch those children, any interaction with those children. And I'm telling you, I have not seen it anywhere else, but it was so calming before we went on that unit. And I know that those people that created that facility, created that program for staff, that was a lot of thinking, a lot of helping us process before we went onto that unit. And then we were sitting there, we saw they have a calendar going, it didn't feel like boo-boo-boo. It just felt like something that we needed before we went on that floor, on that unit, and it was so calming. Just throw it out there. I don't know who watching, but y'all can do that, y'all face. It was so relaxing before we went on that floor. And it was dark, and it was pretty, the bubbles was going up. And the walls were like bubbles going up. And everybody's probably, they had one person where we say something, and we don't have to repeat it back. It was a positive affirmation before we went on there.
Yes.
Just throwing it out there.
One thing I would just add is to change your life a little bit. If you're dealing with yourself or other people with mental illness, especially if it's sustained and long-term and serious mental illness, then you probably will change your life, and you need to say no to some things you're doing so you have time for the new things that you're going to be doing. So I am a person who tends to have been bad during my life about saying no. I just say yes to everything. And I learned that in order to take care of myself, not to mention the persons that I'm caregiving for, I have to learn to say no to some other things.
Yes, very true. Like preaching. Last night I was like, I should have said no. But I'm here today. All right, so let's open the floor. I think we have about 10 minutes or so. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Anything at all for the panelists, for myself, for me three, for People Incorporated?
Well, my question is for folks to say something about the importance of a professional diagnosis as it pertains to accessing resources.
You're right. Well, it talks about advocating too. So we have, anytime a client comes into our building, we do an evaluation and give them a diagnosis. People also get diagnoses from doctors and med prescribers and all these people. And I think, when you walk into the doctor's office, when you walk into a therapy room, the person sitting in front of you doesn't necessarily know what's really going on unless you tell them. And so I think, and one of the realities of the work that we do is that some of the work that we do, you require a certain diagnosis to provide that work. Same thing with medications, you require a certain diagnosis to get prescribed a medication that will help you feel better. And so, yeah, I think advocating for yourself and as a caregiver, advocating for your loved one, to get that diagnosis, to really explain what's going on is, I think, really important. And thank you for bringing that up. You're right.
My son was first diagnosed with depression, then depression with psychotic features, then depression and substance abuse, MICD, mental illness, chemical dependency. Then he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, then schizophrenia, then schizoaffective disorder, and that's where we are right now. But in the end, it doesn't matter other than to get services what your diagnosis is, but it does matter what care you get and what works for you. And so there is some correlation between the diagnosis and the right medication if you need medication, if you have that level of mental illness that you need medication. And my son is currently on the gold standard for people like him, which is clozapine. And until he was actually diagnosed with some form of schizophrenia, or it works for bipolar 2, he did not have access to clozapine. And there's also a big dragging of feet to get people to use that drug because it's got side effects that need to also be addressed. And then the FDA puts road barriers in there. We know then it sounds like about the blood tests. And my son wasn't allowed to use it for 16 years because he was misdiagnosed at Abbott Northwestern with agranulocytosis, which in like 3 years ago we went and checked those records. He never had it. So there's a lot going on with that drug. That's the best drug, but it's underutilized in communities of color. So and it's the best one for schizophrenia and a lot of people with bipolar disorder and schizoaffective. So when we say get educated and talk to people, we mean it.
So first, thank you all for being here today and sharing your stories and your expertise. And so I'm here representing the Hennepin County Children's Mental Health Collaborative and Children's Mental Health System of Care with Hennepin County. And my role in a contracted position is to support the integration of family engagement into the system of care, children's mental health. And what I've been doing is hearing directly from parents and caregivers about their experiences in regards to awareness of resources, access to services and care, and obstacles, and of course improvements so that we can inform and transform the system of care. I've heard quite a bit from caregivers and parents similar to what you shared today, and I'd like for you to, so a couple of things. So Dr. Foster, thank you for really emphasizing the importance of alternative healing supports and practices as opposed to just talk therapy, because culturally we know that that doesn't always resonate, and it's not effective, as you mentioned, in regards to the right fit, because there is an importance of having culturally specific, not responsive, culturally specific supports and practices. I also heard quite a bit about the education, the empowerment of seeking resources and information, which I also have heard directly from those that I've had spoke with. One thing you just mentioned, excuse me, I forget your name, Melanie? Mindy, you had mentioned the importance of advocacy. I also found that that is different for each group, right? Especially with communities of color, Black, Brown, Indigenous, Native American. We don't always have the privilege to be in spaces where we can advocate, and if we are, that's not often heard. And so I'm wondering what resources or channels have you found to be effective that maybe exclusive to certain communities that you may want to highlight? So I just wanted to just bring that question to you.
I feel as a white person very privileged to be able to advocate and be heard. And so I think the Children's Collaborative with Hennepin County and all the counties that have collaboratives is the best model possible, because there you've got a lot of voices all connected and people are learning how to advocate and learning to work together. So I don't have experience with obviously being a person of color and trying to be heard, but I feel like it's my responsibility, because I can be heard, to do all the advocating I can to pave the way. And I have actually tried to get some people of color that I know that are dealing with serious mental illness to join us. We do have some on our Ramsey County board, and we want them there because we want them to be able to have their voices be heard. But it's also more powerful with today's legislature, which is much more diverse than when I was there. We need to have this not look like a white person's problem. The only white people can have mental illness. We need everybody to know that everybody gets mental illness. It's an equal opportunity illness, and so if everyone isn't speaking up, then the whole system doesn't benefit as well. So I really think to use your model, where I can't imagine that you don't have a variety of voices that are involved.
But I was thinking more specifically in regards to, so yes and no, and there's some changes that need to occur even within the group, as some of the things you've explained. And so we're working towards the more diverse voices that are racially and culturally diverse, so that the importance of the health disparities and gaps are being illuminated from those with lived experience. So that's part of my work, is to bring the community voice forward, and so those changes can be made internally that supports the whole. I was also just curious to know if there are any, like, pinpoint, you've mentioned NAMI, I'm just wondering if there are any other advocacy groups or educational opportunities that parents and caregivers could participate in, advocate, you know, to build their skills in a way that will support their families and themselves.
Yeah, I wish I had a really good answer to that.
That's all right.
But I know there's the Mental Health Legislative Action Network that is all the organizations People Incorporated belongs to it, and they've come up with the legislative agenda for the year, and they try to have mental health organizations speak with one voice, and that doesn't always occur, but it's a place to plug in, and the leadership rotates between NAMI, every biennium, and the Mental Health Minnesota. So that if there are groups that represent peoples of color who are advocating in the mental health group, then you should join that group and speak up. That's a place to amplify your voice with other groups. And I have seen after George Floyd's murder a huge change in the whole mental health advocacy, where there's huge emphasis compared to before, at least, on making sure that everybody's mental health needs are met. That has really changed the whole world, but certainly the mental health advocacy world as well. Unfortunately, that it had to come through that route. But he obviously was a suffering person too.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, because you said two good resources. NAMI, which is one resource, and if you go to NAMI and you don't get the question answered, ask to speak to Sue Abnerholm, who's the CEO, and she is very responsive. That's number one. And then Mental Health Minnesota, which I think the lady's name is Mulville, but Sue knows who that is as well. And then when you said Hennepin County Children's Collaborative, are you a staff person with Hennepin County, or is that a community organization? I just wanted to get clarity on that.
So no, I'm not a staff person of Hennepin County. And
so it's a community organization?
The collaborative is, the Hennepin County Children's Mental Health Collaborative is a quasi-governmental agency, and there are various collaboratives throughout the state here.
Okay, so you're not the same as Hennepin County Local Advisory Council?
No.
But you know who they are?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Just getting clarity, sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, the last thing, last resource is the Governor's State Advisory Council on Mental Health. The Governor's State Advisory Council on Mental Health. And they have a children's subcommittee.
Thank you.
Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so last question.
And I don't have a question, I want to share. And this is really being kind of cathartic for me. During COVID, my older sister, now she had some issues. She was only 60. She was having some issues. So we had to do a wellness check, and they're going to see why this is cathartic for me. This is really interesting. I had to do a wellness check. So we do the wellness check. Hennepin County takes her in. She's on the psych ward. They say we're keeping her, Tom. She's got some real serious cognitive issues. She's combative all the time. But I know what I've got to do. I'm a lawyer. I get appointed guardian conservator, and I jump in, and I feel like I'm doing everything right. I get myself appointed. We get her care. We get her to a facility. She won't take these meds. But this combative thing, I'm just not really getting it, and I'm getting mad. Specifically, I got in her face one day, and I said this. I said, look, you have a kid. The kid is not here. Nobody's here. I'm the one here. You need to do what I'm telling you, because what you need to do is what these people are telling you to do. It's got to be done, and I'm telling you it has to be done. And I mean, in her face, and we have this shouting match. Still, not going to eat. She ate what she wanted to eat, and then she wouldn't take the meds, though. Not taking the meds. I don't care what they're not taking the meds. And then she got sick, and she died. And she was not supposed to die. My older sister says, hey, See, you didn't know she was tired of what she was dealing with. So this whole notion of check in and get to resources, like today, this is really it's kind of getting me. It's kind of getting me because I thought I was doing everything. And really, I don't think I wasn't doing this. I wasn't dialed into what she was really dealing with. It took her not being here and some other things reflective for me to see. It's like, you didn't dial into what she was dealing with at all. You were trying to make sure, well, she's in a clean place and she eats. And she died. And I was amazed when she died.
She had anosognosia. She didn't know she was sick.
That was a piece of it. You're here, I'm only here because you did that wellness check on me. And now these people won't let me go home. My ankles were a little swollen. And when my ankles are swelled, then you just got to stop keeping these people from letting me go home.
And there are strategies to work with someone like that who won't take their meds and doesn't think they're sick. But if they think, well, my ankles are swollen, maybe I'll take something for that, and then, or I'll take some supplements or some vitamins, and then they gradually phase in and sneak in those antipsychotics. And then she was probably, if she was combative, she was dealing with psychosis, and you were powerless with her not getting the right help to deal with her, so it wasn't your fault either.
And in a short period of time, I don't mean like she was there for years, it started happening. It took a couple months. When they called and said, hey, we're taking her to HCMC, and she died. She died from what?
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate that. We definitely want to wrap up for time. We appreciate everyone being here. I will give the floor back to Jill. Thank you guys so much for your questions, your thoughts. Thank you, Takana.
Yes.
I'm just going to say thank you to everybody again. Even though you've already said it, thank you to you for the extraordinary sharing, the way that we created community today to support our learning, to support maybe things that are still kind of working out there for us, perhaps supporting the way that we think about how we experience each other. We created a lot of strength in this community today, and I just want to thank you all. The more we talk to each other, the more we're aware of our needs, the more we resource against those needs, the better and healthier we all become. So go out and share it. And thank you so much to everyone.